All right, let's now shift our attention to some other stories now, where major updates emerged from the US war chat leak incident. The Atlantic magazine, whose editor-in-chief is mistakenly added to the Signal group chat, has made public all details of this group chat. The Atlantic has said that it is posting the chats after statements from senior leaders and intel chiefs, who all said in unison that there is no classified information in the chat. Now, the Atlantic magazine has declared that they are releasing all the details of the chat group in public interest. So let's take a look at the timeline. Now, there are several messages that were exchanged in the group, during which time the Atlantic editor-in-chief had already been added to the chat. As is visible from the screenshots of the chat, there are a total of 19 members in the group. Jeffrey Goldberg was added by the National Security Advisor of the United States, Mike Waltz. The setting of the group can be seen as disappearing messages, time set for 1 week. And then we see the first message by Mike Waltz after Goldberg was added to the group. The message says that the group has been established to coordinate on the Houthis for the next 72 hours. And this is where things get really interesting. After a chat on other administrative issues and political messaging, there is a text from the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The timing of the text is 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Hegseth sends a long message of what the attack plan is going to be. Now, take note of the timing. The text is sent just 2 hours before the first attack on the Houthis in Yemen, and 31 minutes before the first American warplanes were launched. The text reads, "Weather is favorable." Hegseth confirms that the mission is a go-ahead. And then the text says at 12:15 Eastern Time, the F-18s have launched in air. At 13:45 Eastern Time, that is afternoon local time, the F-18 carries out its first campaign of bombing. More details are shared about the second attack that is supposed to take place, which is at 15:36 Eastern Time. Now, in the end of this text, Hegseth says that more is to follow according to the timeline. The US Defense Secretary ends the message with "Godspeed to our warriors." This is what was discussed in this infamous Signal group chat, which included the who's who of the Trump administration. Now, before the chat was published, the Trump administration has been working pretty hard to try and contain the flack and also the fallout from the incident. On Tuesday, Trump and the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz spoke to the media to address the war chat leak involving a senior journalist and some of the senior most lawmakers in the American cabinet. Donald Trump said that information shared on the messenger application Signal was not classified.
The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag. So maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know.
Now, Mike Waltz, for his part, took responsibility for what he himself called a very embarrassing incident, where the National Security Advisor had an explanation on how this mistake might have happened from him. Listen to his remarks that he made in an interview to an American channel.
Look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did that number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group.
All right, so this gentleman is the National Security Advisor of the United States of America, responsible for looking after the security of the United States. Now, Mike Waltz said that agencies are now investigating the incident. However, questions are also being raised by congressional lawmakers during the ongoing Intelligence Committee meetings that have overlapped with this scandal. On Tuesday, the senators grilled the intelligence heads, including Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe, on the lapse. Both the CIA director and the director of national intelligence maintained that no classified information was released on the chat group. A similar line of questioning has begun from the House of Representatives Committee. The session, of course, is expected to begin shortly. To remind our viewers of the details of the alleged interleak, on Monday, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine published an article about how he was added to a chat group on Messenger app Signal. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg was added to the group called the Houthi PC Small Group. The journalist says that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared what can only be described as classified information about the U.S. strike plans on the Houthi group before they happened on the group. The chat included several high-profile leaders, including the Vice President J.D. Vance, the American Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. The war chat leak has taken not just the American lawmakers but other nations by storm too. While the Trump administration is trying very hard to downplay what has happened, countries that are part of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance have reacted to the incident. Canada has said that the nation needs to, and I quote, look out for itself. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that while mistakes do happen, but the important part is how people react to these mistakes and how they tighten them up. The United Kingdom, another member of the alliance, has had a more cautious response. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spokesperson praised the close relationship with the United States, particularly on defence and security, adding, "We expect that to continue." The United Kingdom's Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard told the parliamentary panel that no British service personnel had been put at risk because of this chat group leak. Now, Canada and the United Kingdom are members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Network alongside Australia, New Zealand and the United States. Now, the leak is likely to put further strain on the group as it weighs on how seriously the current American administration takes the handling of the top secret information. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.